Thanksgiving dinner at my house. 34 years I'd been hosting, and the turkey alone still took 6 hours. But that's what you do. That's what mothers do. Brian arrived with Jennifer and the kids around 2. The grandchildren ran straight to me. Hugs, sticky hands, still young enough to love their grandma without complication, 8 and 10 years old. "Smells amazing, Mom," Brian said, kissing my cheek. He looked tired, thinner than last time. Jennifer stayed by the door checking her phone. Emily couldn't make it this year, teaching obligations 3 states away, so it was just us. Me, Brian's family, and the empty chairs. I'd set the table with my good china, the set my mother gave me when I got married, white with gold trim. 43 years old, those plates. By 4 o'clock, we were seated. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie cooling on the counter. I started carving the turkey. The knife was sharp, thin, even slices. White meat for Jennifer, dark meat for Brian, like always. That's when I heard it. "Well," Jennifer said, laughing, "at least we're only feeding 1 extra mouth this year." She was talking about Emily's absence. At least that's what I thought. But Brian laughed too, and he glanced at me, just for a second, then back at Jennifer. "1 less," he said. His voice was quiet, but I heard it. "Makes it easier." I kept carving, kept my hands steady, passed the plates, smiled at the kids, but something shifted in my chest, something cold, the extra mouth, the way they'd looked at each other, like it was a joke they'd discussed before. The extra mouth, not Emily, me. I finished serving, sat down at the head of the table, my spot for 34 years, and I ate, asked the kids about school, complimented Jennifer's earrings, laughed at Brian's stories, but inside I was somewhere else, replaying those words, that look. After dinner, I was in the kitchen scraping turkey bones into the trash when I heard Brian's voice from the living room. He was on his phone. Speaker low, but the house was quiet. Old house, thin walls. No, it went fine. She didn't suspect anything. I froze, plate in my hand. I know, but we can't push too hard yet. Get her thinking about the house, about how much it is for her to manage alone. Silence. He was listening to someone. "Once the house is ours, we can figure it out, but we've got to be patient." I set the plate down, slowly, carefully. The house, my house, the house I'd lived in for 34 years, the house I owned outright, no mortgage, no debt, mine. Once the house is ours. I walked to the hallway, stopped just out of sight. "I'm working on it," Brian said. "She's 72. How much longer can she really manage a 4-bedroom house by herself?" My hands were shaking. I pressed them against the wall. The same walls I'd painted 3 times, the same walls where I'd hung family photos, Brian's school pictures, Emily's graduation, the grandchildren's baby portraits. The same walls he was already claiming as his. I went back to the kitchen, washed the dishes, dried them, put them away. When Brian and his family left, kids hugging me goodbye, Brian kissing my cheek, Jennifer waving from the car, I smiled, waved back, closed the door. And then I stood in the hallway, in my house, the house I'd paid for, the house I'd maintained, the house where I'd raised my children and buried my husband, and I thought, when did I stop being his mother? When did I become the problem? When did I become the extra mouth? That night, I opened the safe in my closet and pulled out the property deed. There it was, my name, Diane Carson, owner, sole owner, not Brian's name, not Ann's son, not to be inherited by, mine. I sat on the edge of my bed holding that deed, and I realized something. He didn't see me as a mother anymore. He saw me as an obstacle, just the extra mouth standing between him and my house. I put the deed back in the safe, closed the door, locked it, and I thought, what am I protecting? Not that night, not yet, but soon, very soon. It's been 5 days since Thanksgiving. I haven't been able to drink my morning coffee on the back porch since that night. I sit at the kitchen table instead, staring at the wall. The birds still come to the feeder. I just can't watch them anymore. I'm 72 years old, widowed 6 years now. Tom died of a heart attack, sudden, no warning. We'd been married 37 years, raised 2 kids in this house, Brian and Emily. I worked as an elementary school teacher for 30 years, 3rd grade, retired at 65 with a pension that, combined with Social Security and Tom's life insurance, keeps me comfortable. Not wealthy, but comfortable. I own this house outright. Paid off the mortgage 8 years ago. No debt, no financial stress. I thought I'd done everything right. The morning after Thanksgiving, Margaret showed up at my back door with 2 cups of coffee. She's lived next door for 12 years. Retired nurse, widow, president of the garden club. She knows my routines better than my own kids do. "You're not yourself," she said, settling into the porch chair across from me. Not a question, a statement. I wanted to brush it off. But Margaret has a way of seeing through deflection. Nurse's training, maybe, or just the gift of a good friend. "Something happened at Thanksgiving," I said finally, "with Brian." She waited. That's the thing about Margaret. She doesn't push. She just listens. I told her about the extra mouth comment, about the phone call I'd overheard, about how Brian had been talking about my house like it was already his. Margaret's expression didn't change, but her hand tightened around her coffee mug. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe months, maybe years. I've been ignoring the signs." Because there had been signs. I saw that now. Over the past 25 years, I gave Brian everything I could. $35,000 for college tuition, double shifts at the school, summer tutoring jobs I took instead of vacations, $25,000 for his first house down payment, my entire retirement savings at the time wiped out in one check, $18,000 for his wedding, the reception he and Jennifer wanted, the photographer, the flowers, everything. And twice I bailed him out when he got in over his head financially. $8,000 the first time, $7,000 the second, $93,000, 25 years of sacrifices. I thought I was helping him build a life. Turns out he was just waiting for mine to end. But it wasn't just the money. It was the little things I dismissed. 2 years ago, Brian asked if I'd updated my will. "Just want to make sure everything's in order, Mom. You know, in case something happens." At the time, I thought it was sweet, responsible. Now I wondered what he'd really been asking. Last Christmas, he walked through the house with Jennifer, pointing out the crown molding, the hardwood floors, the updated kitchen I'd paid to renovate 5 years ago. "This place is worth a fortune now," he'd said. "You could sell it and move somewhere smaller, easier to manage." I'd laughed it off, said I loved this house. He'd smiled and dropped it. But I remembered Jennifer's expression, calculating, assessing. I told Margaret all of this. She listened, nodding occasionally, her nurse's face calm and neutral. "What are you going to do?" she asked finally. "I don't know," I said, and I didn't. Not yet. But I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. After Margaret left, I walked through the house, really looked at it. Every room held memories of raising my kids. Brian's bedroom still painted the blue he'd chosen when he was 10. Emily's room, now a guest room, but I could still see her teenage posters on the walls if I closed my eyes. The living room where we'd opened Christmas presents for 34 years. The kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals. But now I saw it through Brian's eyes. The crown molding, the hardwood floors, the updated kitchen. Not a home, an asset, a price tag. And me, an obstacle to liquidation. My daughter Emily called that evening. She calls once a week. Sunday nights usually, reliable, steady. She teaches high school English 3 states away, married to a good man, 1 daughter of her own. "How was Thanksgiving?" she asked. I almost told her, almost said, "Your brother called me the extra mouth, and I overheard him planning to take my house. But Emily's always been the peacemaker, the one who smooths things over. and I wasn't ready to put her in the middle of this. "It was fine," I said. "Missed you, though." "I missed you too, Mom. Maybe Christmas." "Maybe Christmas," I agreed. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house, and I thought about my flaw, the one I'd carried my whole life. I avoid conflict. I smooth things over. I tell myself it's about keeping the peace, about being the bigger person, about family coming first. But the truth? I've spent 30 years enabling Brian's entitlement because I was afraid of losing him, afraid of being the difficult mother, afraid of admitting that maybe, just maybe, I'd raised someone who saw me as a means to an end. Tom used to tell me I was too soft with Brian. "You can't fix everything for him," he'd say. "He needs to learn consequences." But I didn't listen. I just kept writing checks, kept bailing him out, kept telling myself it was what good mothers do. And now here I was, 72 years old, sitting in a house I owned outright, being called the extra mouth by the son I'd sacrificed everything for. I thought about Brian's situation. I did. He lost his job 18 months ago. Marketing manager, good salary, gone overnight in corporate restructuring. I know it hit him hard. He'd always measured himself by his career, by his ability to provide. And Jennifer, I've heard the arguments through the phone. She comes from money, old money, the kind that doesn't understand job loss or struggling. The kind that expects solutions, not excuses. I know she's been pressuring him about their finances, about their future. I understood the pressure he was under. I did. But understanding didn't excuse cruelty. Desperation didn't justify seeing your mother as a burden. Financial stress didn't make it okay to plan her life or her death without asking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the extra mouth comment, about the way Brian looked at Jennifer when he said it, like they'd discussed it before, like I was the punchline to a joke only they understood. At 3 a.m, I got up, made tea, sat at the kitchen table, and I thought, what am I protecting? A relationship that only exists when I'm useful? A son who sees me as an expense to be managed? For 34 years, I'd made every decision in this house to protect my family, keep them safe, keep them happy, keep them together. Now I had to make one more decision. Would I protect them from the truth or protect myself? Sunday came and went. No phone call from Brian. For 15 years, he'd called every Sunday, like clockwork. We'd talk for 30 minutes. His week, my week, the grandkids. This Sunday, my phone didn't ring. The silence was louder than any argument. By Tuesday, I couldn't stand the waiting anymore. I needed to understand what was happening. So I did something I'd never done before. I drove to Brian's house. He'd asked me to watch the kids that afternoon. Jennifer had a deposition. He had a job interview. When I arrived, the house was chaos. Kids running around, Brian rushing to get ready, iPad on the kitchen counter next to the grocery list we'd started together. "Thanks for this, Mom," Brian said, kissing my cheek as he headed out the door. "We'll be back by 5. The door closed. The kids ran upstairs to play, and I was alone in the kitchen, looking at the iPad. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for the grocery list. We'd been planning to shop together after he got back, but the iPad was unlocked, and the message thread was right there, open. Brian's conversation with Jennifer from that morning. "Jennifer, did you talk to your mom about moving to senior living yet?" Brian, "Not yet. She's stubborn, but she can't afford that house much longer." I stared at that message. Read it twice. Then 3 times. I own my house outright. No mortgage. Brian knows that. We'd celebrated when I made the final payment 8 years ago. He'd been there, toasted with champagne. So why would he tell Jennifer I couldn't afford it? I kept reading. "Jennifer, we need that equity for our house. Push harder, Brian. I know, Thanksgiving might be a good time to plant seeds." My hands started shaking. I had to set the iPad down. Plant seeds. That's what I was to him, a problem requiring strategy. I scrolled up, found more messages, weeks of them. "Brian, Looked at senior living places today. Sunset Manor is $3,500 a month. Golden Years is $4,200. Jennifer, if we sell her house at $485K and put her somewhere for $3,500 a month, we could clear $335K after 5 years. Maybe less if she goes to memory care. Memory care. I don't have memory problems. I don't need assisted living. I'm 72 and healthy. But they'd already done the math, already calculated my life down to monthly expenses and profit margins. I heard a noise upstairs. The kids. I quickly closed the message thread, opened the grocery list app like that's what I'd been looking at all along. My heart was pounding. I looked at the closed message thread, then back at the grocery list. I should stop. Walk away. Pretend I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't. I opened the messages again, took my phone out of my purse, and I started taking pictures. Every conversation, every calculation, every cold assessment of my future that they'd made without asking me. The kids ran downstairs asking for snacks. I put my phone away, smiled, got them crackers and juice, sat with them while they watched cartoons, but inside, I was somewhere else, replaying those messages, those calculations. When Brian got home at 5, I was on the couch with the kids, normal, calm. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Good, I think. They'll let me know next week." He looked tired but hopeful. "Thanks again, Mom. You're a lifesaver." A lifesaver. Or just a problem to be solved. I waited until the kids were distracted. Then I said, casually, "Brian, I've been thinking about what you said at Thanksgiving, about the house being too much for me." His expression shifted, just slightly, guarded. "I didn't say that. You said I couldn't manage it alone, that I should think about downsizing." "I was just concerned, Mom. You're 72. That's a big house for one person." I watched his face, measured my words carefully. "I own it outright. No mortgage, no debt. Why would I sell?" "I didn't say sell. I said downsize. There are nice places, communities for seniors. You'd have people around, activities. You wouldn't have to worry about maintenance." "I don't worry about maintenance. I hire people for that." His jaw tightened, just for a second. "Look, I'm just thinking about your future. What happens if something happens to you? What if you fall and can't get up? What if—" "I'm fine, Brian. For now. But Mom, you have to be realistic." Realistic. The word hung between us. "I am being realistic," I said quietly. "I'm 72, not 90. I'm healthy, I'm financially stable, and I'm not going anywhere." He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw it, the flash of frustration before he covered it with concern. "I just want what's best for you." "Then trust me to know what that is." Silence. The kids' cartoon playing in the background. Jennifer's car pulling into the driveway. "Sure, Mom," Brian said finally. His voice was tight. "Of course." But I'd heard the calculation in that pause, the recalibration. I'd pushed back, and he didn't like it. I left before Jennifer came inside. Didn't want to face her, didn't trust myself to be civil. That evening, I spent an hour in the garden, pulling weeds I'd ignored all summer, my hands in the dirt, the rhythm of pulling and tossing. It's where I think, where I've always thought. And what I kept thinking was, when did I become disposable? Margaret came by after dinner. Saw me in the garden, came through the gate without asking. She's good like that, knows when someone needs company and when they need someone to just sit quietly beside them. "You okay?" she asked, settling onto the garden bench. "I found text messages," I said. "Between Brian and Jennifer, they've been planning this, calculating how much my house is worth, how much senior living costs, how much profit they'd make." Margaret didn't look surprised. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to confront him, really confront him. Not the gentle conversation we had today, a real one. Put the evidence on the table and make him explain." "And the other part?" "The other part is scared. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm overreacting? What if—" "Diane." Margaret's voice was firm, nurse voice, the one that cut through panic. "You saw the messages. You heard the comment at Thanksgiving. You're not overreacting. You're finally reacting. I pulled another weed, tossed it in the pile. He's my son. I know. I raised him to be better than this. I know that, too. We sat in silence, the sun setting, the birds settling into their evening routines. There's still turkey in the freezer, I said finally, from Thanksgiving. Pumpkin pie and Tupperware. I threw it all away this morning. Margaret asked why. I couldn't explain that every bite tasted like extra mouth. But she understood. Margaret squeezed my hand. You're going to be okay. Whatever you decide, you're going to be okay. I wanted to believe her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the confrontation with Brian, the way he'd pivoted from concern to frustration when I pushed back, the way he'd said, of course, like it was the end of the conversation, but his eyes said it wasn't. At 2 a.m, I got up, made tea, sat at the kitchen table with my phone, and I looked at the photos I'd taken of those messages, cold, clinical, calculating. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a moment of frustration or a bad joke. This was planned, systematic, strategic. I opened my laptop, typed elder law attorney near me into Google, then I closed it. Too soon, too drastic, but I didn't delete the search. I needed proof, real proof. Not just text messages I'd photographed without permission, not just a comment at Thanksgiving, not just a feeling that something was wrong. I needed documentation, evidence, something solid, and I knew where to start. The county clerk's office, property records, to see if Brian had tried anything with the deed, to see if there were any changes I didn't know about. Tomorrow, first thing tomorrow, I was done waiting, done smoothing things over, done being the extra mouth who stayed quiet while her son planned her future. If he wanted my house, he was going to have to explain why he thought it was his to take. Wednesday morning, I drove to the county clerk's office. The building was old, fluorescent lights humming, linoleum floors that squeaked. I stood at the counter and gave the clerk my address, asked for any recent activity on my property deed. She typed into her computer, clicked, scrolled, then frowned. There was a request 6 months ago, she said. Someone tried to add a name to the deed using power of attorney documentation. My stomach dropped. Add whose name? She checked the screen. Diane Carson. Your son? Yes, but I never gave him power of attorney. That's what I thought. She clicked again. The signature looked off, so I called the number on file to verify. You answered, said you didn't know anything about it, so we rejected the request. 6 months ago. I remembered that call now. Brief. Confusing. The clerk asking if I'd authorized changes to my deed. I'd said no, assumed it was a mistake, hung up and forgot about it. It wasn't a mistake. Can I get copies of those documents? I asked. Of course. She printed them. I saw Brian's signature, saw mine, forged, shaky, nothing like my actual handwriting. Saw the date, 6 months before Thanksgiving. He'd tried to steal my house legally, and when that didn't work, he'd moved to Plan B, manipulation, waiting. I drove home with those documents on my passenger seat, pulled into my driveway, sat in the car for 10 minutes just staring at my house. My house, not his, mine. I went inside, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and that's when I saw the envelope. It was in the mail I'd brought in yesterday but hadn't opened. Official looking. Return address, Thompson & Associates Real Estate Appraisal. I opened it slowly. Property appraisal for 847 Maple Street, requested by Diane Carson, dated 3 months before Thanksgiving. Current market value, $485,000. I had to take my reading glasses off and clean them, not because they were dirty, because my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't focus. The numbers blurred. Or maybe that was tears. 3 months before Thanksgiving. 3 months. I set the appraisal on the table, looked at it, really looked at it. He'd had my house appraised. My house. Without asking. Without telling me. like it was already his, like I was already gone. I sat at that table for an hour just staring at those papers. The appraisal was dated 3 months before Thanksgiving. 3 months he'd been planning, calculating, waiting, and I didn't know. I was making Sunday dinners, sending birthday cards, being his mother, and he was appraising my home like I was already gone. I'd raised him in this house, watched him take his first steps in the living room, taught him to ride a bike in the driveway, nursed him through chickenpox in the bedroom upstairs, celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every milestone, and he'd reduced it to a number, $485,000. Not a home, not memories, not the place where his mother lived, a price tag. I thought about the text messages, the calculations, the extra mouth comment. I'd wanted to believe it was a moment of stress, a bad joke, a misunderstanding. But this was premeditated. This was planning. This was, let me find out exactly what I'll inherit so I know what I'm waiting for. That's when it hit me, really hit me. He wasn't waiting to help me. He wasn't concerned about my well-being. He was waiting for me to die, or at least get out of the way. And he'd been waiting for at least 3 months, probably longer. I picked up my phone, called Margaret. "I need help," I said when she answered. "I need to document everything, and I don't know how." She was at my door in 15 minutes. We spent the afternoon building a case. That's what Margaret called it. "If this goes legal," she said, "you'll need a paper trail." She brought a composition notebook from her house, the kind with numbered pages that can't be torn out without leaving evidence. Nurses training. She knows about keeping records. We wrote down every conversation with Brian, every text message, every document, date, time, what was said. I wrote. She kept me organized, made sure I didn't miss anything. Then we went through my files, looking for anything else I might have missed. That's when I found the email, buried in my spam folder, from Sarah Mitchell, Coldwell Banker Real Estate. Subject line, Future Listing, 847 Maple Street. I opened it. "Brian, thanks for reaching out about your mother's property. I'll keep the file active and reach out when you're ready to list. Based on the appraisal you sent, we could list at $475 to $500K depending on market conditions. Let me know when the property is freed up. Best, Sarah." When the property is freed up. Freed up. Like I was a tenant, a squatter, an obstacle to be removed. I forwarded the email to myself, added it to the notebook. Margaret squeezed my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "I don't feel like I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm investigating my own son." "You are, because he gave you reason to." I called the attorney that evening. Susan Rodriguez, Margaret's friend, had recommended her. Elder law specialist, 25 years of experience. Her office was in a renovated Victorian downtown, professional but warm, family photos on the desk, a bowl of Werther's Originals by the tissue box. I laid everything out, the text messages, the forged power of attorney, the appraisal, the realtor email, the extra mouth comment, all of it. Susan listened, made notes. Her face stayed calm, professional. But I saw her jaw tighten when I showed her the forged POA. "Your son has no legal claim to your property while you're alive and competent," she said, "but let's talk about protecting yourself." She explained it simply. The forged POA was fraud, but hard to prosecute without pressing charges against my own son. The appraisal was legal. Anyone can request one. The messages were evidence of intent, not crime. "What you have," Susan said, "is a pattern. Financial manipulation, coercive behavior, attempted fraud. It might not be criminal, but it's grounds for protecting your assets." "How?" I asked. "That depends. What do you want to do?" I thought about the extra mouth comment, the calculations, the casual cruelty of when the property is freed up. "I want to make sure he can't do this," I said, "to me or anyone else." "Then we need to think strategically, update your estate planning, make sure all your legal documents are airtight, And maybe, she paused, chose her words carefully. Maybe consider whether this house is still serving you or if it's become a target. I drove home in silence, thinking about that last sentence, whether this house was still serving me or if it had become a target. Over the next few days, I kept digging, called the realtor, Sarah Mitchell, introduced myself as Brian's mother, said I was organizing my estate planning and wanted to understand what he'd discussed with her. She was uncomfortable, professional, but uncomfortable. He contacted me about 4 months ago, she said carefully. Said he was preparing for the inevitable, wanted to know what the property would be worth, how long it would take to sell. The inevitable, I repeated. His words, not mine. I thought it was premature. You sound very much alive, Mrs. Carson. I am alive, and I didn't authorize any of this. Silence on the other end. I'm sorry, she said finally. I wish I could say this was unusual, but adult children contacting us about their parents' properties, it happens more than you'd think. I thanked her, hung up, added her testimony to the notebook. Then I called Brian's financial advisor, Tom Bradley. I'd met him once at a party Brian threw 3 years ago. Mrs. Carson, he said when I identified myself, how can I help you? I'm calling because I'm updating my estate plan, and I wanted to understand, has Brian discussed my property with you? Any advice you've given him about inherited real estate? Another uncomfortable pause. Mrs. Carson, I can't discuss client conversations, but I will say this. When Brian brought up reverse mortgages on a property he doesn't own, I advised him that it was neither legal nor ethical, and that he should speak directly with you about any financial planning involving your assets. Reverse mortgages on my house. Thank you, I said. My voice was steady, calm. That's all I needed to know. 3 professionals, 3 conversations, 3 confirmations. My son had been planning my future without me, contacting realtors, discussing mortgages, getting appraisals, all while calling me every Sunday and saying, I love you, Mom. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt different, too quiet, too big. I'd lived here 34 years, but suddenly it felt like I was haunting it. Or maybe it was haunting me. Either way, it wasn't home anymore. It was just walls and a price tag. I walked through the rooms one last time that night, really looked at them. Brian's childhood bedroom, Emily's room, the kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents for 3 decades. But I wasn't seeing memories anymore. I was seeing $485,000, $335,000 in profit after 5 years of warehousing me somewhere cheap. I was seeing my life calculated down to monthly expenses and inheritance timelines, and I realized this house wasn't mine anymore. It hadn't been mine for months, maybe longer. In Brian's mind, it was already his. I was just temporarily occupying space he'd already claimed, the extra mouth, living in his house, waiting to free up the property. I went back to my bedroom, opened the safe, looked at the property deed one more time. Diane Carson, owner, sole owner. Not for much longer, but not in the way Brian thought. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all those documents, all that evidence, all those calculations of my worth. I got up around 3 a.m, made tea, sat in the living room with the lights off, and I started remembering. Christmas morning, 30 years ago. Brian was 15, Emily was 12. The tree was in the corner where it always was, covered in ornaments we'd made together over the years, paper chains from when they were little, clay handprints, a star Brian made in 3rd grade that was crooked but perfect. Tom was alive then, sat in his chair by the fireplace, camera ready. I was on the floor in my bathrobe helping Brian assemble something complicated, a model plane maybe, or a stereo system. He was so excited, talking a mile a minute about how he was going to use it, who he'd show it to. "Best mom ever," he'd said, hugging me. Genuine, grateful, happy. I remembered that moment so clearly, the smell of cinnamon rolls baking, Emily's laughter, Tom's hand on my shoulder, the house filled with love and warmth and safety. That was real. That happened. Another memory, Brian's high school graduation party. Same living room 8 years later. Brian in his cap and gown, grinning, arm around me for photos, friends and family everywhere. I'd made his favorite cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting. He'd given a speech, thanked his teachers, his friends, then looked at me. "My mom sacrificed everything for us," he'd said, pride in his voice, real pride. She worked double shifts, gave up vacations, made sure we had everything we needed. "I'm going to take care of her someday, I promise." Everyone applauded. I'd cried, happy tears, proud tears. "I'll take care of you someday, Mom, I promise." When did that promise turn into a countdown? When did take care of you become get you out of the way? I sat in that living room at 3 a.m. Same room, same furniture, same walls, but everything was different. The Christmas tree corner was empty now. No more paper chains, no more crooked stars, just a space where joy used to be. Tom's chair was still there, but no one sat in it. Too painful. I'd thought about getting rid of it 100 times, never could. And the spot where Brian stood in his cap and gown, I could see it, could picture him there, 17 years old, full of promise and gratitude. But I couldn't reconcile that boy with the man who'd forged my signature, who'd appraised my house behind my back, who'd called me the extra mouth. When did it change? Or was I just too blind to see it? I got up, walked upstairs to my bedroom, opened the closet, pulled down the box I'd been avoiding. Photo albums, decades of them. I sat on the floor and opened the first one. Brian as a baby, toddler, little boy learning to ride a bike, Emily in pigtails, family vacations to the lake, birthday parties, school plays. Every photo I'd been there, behind the camera or in the frame. Present, devoted, loving. I flipped through the albums slowly, watched my children grow up in those pages, watched Tom age, then disappear after his heart attack 6 years ago, watched the house stay the same while everything else changed. Found the photo from 3 Thanksgivings ago, all of us around the table, Brian laughing, Emily with her arm around me, the grandkids making faces, me in the middle, arms around everyone. That family. I'd protected it for so long. Accommodated, sacrificed, stayed quiet, told myself it was about keeping the peace, being the bigger person, keeping everyone together. But that family didn't exist anymore. Maybe it never had. Maybe I'd been so busy taking the photo that I didn't see what was happening inside the frame. I closed the album, wrapped it in tissue paper, put it in the box with the others, not throwing them away. I couldn't do that. These were my memories, my life, my children's childhoods. But I couldn't look at them right now, couldn't reconcile the boy in those photos with the man on the other end of those text messages. I put the box back in the closet, closed the door, and I stood there in my bedroom, in my house, the house I'd lived in for 34 years, the house where every memory had been made, and I realized something. I'd spent 30 years afraid of losing my son's love, 30 years of writing checks and smoothing things over and biting my tongue because I thought that's what kept families together. But that night, standing in my bedroom at 4 a.m, I understood. I'd already lost him. The son I raised wouldn't have treated me like this. The boy in those photos would have been horrified by the man he'd become. And the man he'd become, the one calculating my death as profit, the one seeing me as an obstacle, he didn't deserve my house. He didn't deserve my sacrifice. Not anymore. I sat on the edge of my bed, thought about my flaw, the one I'd carried my whole life. I avoid conflict, I accommodate, I enable. Tom used to tell me, you can't fix everything for him. He needs consequences. But I didn't listen. I kept fixing, kept enabling, Kept telling myself I was being a good mother. But good mothers don't raise entitled sons who forge their mother's signatures. Good mothers set boundaries, teach consequences, say no. I'd failed at that. For 30 years, I'd failed at that. But I didn't have to keep failing. At 7 in the morning, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, typed real estate agent near me into Google, found one with good reviews, 5 stars, specializes in senior transitions. I picked up my phone, called before I could change my mind. Summit Realty, this is Karen. Hi, I said. My voice was steady, calm. My name is Diane Carson. I'd like to list my house, quickly, quietly. Pause on the other end. Are you sure? She asked gently. This is a big decision. I looked around my kitchen, at the table where I'd made 1,000 decisions. Where to send the kids to school, how to stretch the budget when Tom got sick, whether to refinance, whether to stay after he died. This was just one more decision. But it felt bigger, because it wasn't about the house. It was about who I was going to be for the rest of my life. Was I the woman who let her son call her the extra mouth? Who accepted being seen as an obstacle? Who waited quietly to be erased from her own property? Or was I someone else? I've never been more sure of anything, I said. We talked for 30 minutes. She'd come by tomorrow to see the house, start the paperwork, have it listed by next week if I wanted. One thing, I said before we hung up. I don't want my son to know until the sign goes up. Understood, Karen said. This is your decision, your timeline. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, phone in my hand, heart pounding. What had I just done? My phone rang. Emily, our weekly call, right on schedule. Hey, Mom, she said cheerful. How are you? I'm okay, I said, then stopped. Actually, no, I'm not okay. I told her everything, the comment at Thanksgiving, the texts, the appraisal, the forged power of attorney, the calculations, all of it. Silence on the other end. Long silence. Mom, Emily finally said, her voice tight. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to put you in the middle. I'm already in the middle. He's my brother. You're my mother. I'm always in the middle. She took a breath. What are you going to do? I listed the house. This morning. It'll be on the market next week. Another silence. Good, she said finally. I'm proud of you. You are? Mom, he forged your signature. He had your house appraised without telling you. He called you the extra mouth. I love my brother. But what he did, that's not okay. That's never gonna be okay. I started crying. Couldn't help it. I thought you'd be upset, I said. I am upset. At him, not at you. Her voice softened. You've spent your whole life taking care of us, sacrificing for us, and he repaid you by treating you like a problem to solve. You don't have to apologize for protecting yourself. After we hung up, Margaret came over. I'd texted her the news. She showed up with coffee and her garden club president face, supportive but no nonsense. You did it, she said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. I did it. How do you feel? Terrified, I admitted. This is my home. I've lived here 34 years. I raised my kids here. I buried my husband from here. I know. But I can't stay. Not anymore. Every time I walk through these rooms, all I see is $485,000. All I hear is when the property is freed up. All I feel is disposable. Margaret reached across the table, squeezed my hand. You're not disposable. You're making a choice. There's a difference. Brian's going to be furious. Probably. He's going to say I'm being irrational, impulsive, that I'm not thinking clearly. Let him say whatever he wants. You know the truth? I thought about that. The truth. The truth was I'd spent 30 years avoiding conflict, smoothing things over, enabling bad behavior because I thought that's what kept families together. But all it did was teach my son that he could treat me however he wanted. that there were no consequences, that I'd always forgive, always accommodate, always be there to bail him out. I'd confused love with doormat, sacrifice with enabling, and now I was done. Not with love. I'd always love my son. That doesn't just turn off. But love doesn't mean accepting cruelty. It doesn't mean letting yourself be erased. It doesn't mean waiting quietly while someone plans your future without asking. I stood up, walked to the mantel, picked up the Thanksgiving photo from 3 years ago. All of us around the table, smiling, happy, together. I looked at it for a long time. Then I wrapped it in tissue paper, put it in a box in my closet with the photo albums, not throwing it away, just putting it away. That family might exist again someday, but it didn't exist right now, and I needed to face reality, not the fantasy I'd been clinging to. Margaret helped me clean up the coffee cups, hugged me at the door. "You're going to be okay," she said. "I hope so." "No, you are, because you're choosing yourself, finally." After she left, I walked through the house one more time, slowly, room by room. This house had been my entire adult life, my marriage, my children, my identity. But it was just a building, walls and floors and memories, the memories I'd keep, in my heart, in those boxes of photos. But the building? The $485,000? That wasn't me. That was never me. I went back to my bedroom, looked at myself in the mirror, 72 years old, gray hair, lines around my eyes, tired, but not beaten. Not yet. Tomorrow, the realtor would come. Next week, the sign would go up. And then everything would change. By morning, the for sale sign was in my yard. The for sale sign went up on a Tuesday morning. I watched from the kitchen window as Karen hammered the post into my front lawn. Summit Realty, bold red letters, my address, my phone number. It felt surreal, final, like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. My phone rang within the hour. Brian. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, what the hell? There's a for sale sign in your yard. Call me back, now." 3 more calls. 2 from Jennifer, 1 text from Brian. "We need to talk. This is insane." I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed time to prepare, to figure out what I was going to say. Margaret came over that afternoon, saw my phone lighting up with calls. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know. He knows. And now it's real." "It's been real since you made the decision. This is just the next step." That evening, Brian showed up. Didn't knock. Just walked in. He still had a key from when he used to check on me after Tom died. I'd never asked for it back. "Mom." His voice was tight, controlled. "What's going on?" I was in the kitchen, putting away dishes. I kept my hands busy, steady. "I'm selling the house." "Why? Why would you do that without talking to me?" I turned to face him. "Because it's my house, my decision." "But this doesn't make sense. Where are you going to go? What about, I'll figure it out?" His jaw clenched. "Is this about Thanksgiving? About that stupid comment?" Stupid comment, like it was nothing. "It's about a lot of things," I said carefully. "Mom, if I said something that upset you, I'm sorry. But selling your house? That's extreme. You're not thinking clearly." There it was, the first hint of what was coming. "I'm thinking very clearly," I said. "You're 72. This is a huge decision. Have you talked to anyone? A financial advisor? I talked to my attorney." His expression shifted. "Your attorney?" "Yes. I wanted to make sure everything was legal, proper, that no one could challenge it." Silence. He was calculating. I could see it. "Challenge it?" he repeated. "Why would anyone challenge it?" I didn't answer, just looked at him. He left 10 minutes later, angry, confused, trying to hide both. The showing started that week. Karen was efficient, professional, had 3 showings the first day alone. The first one was on a Wednesday. I cleaned the house like I used to before company came, vacuumed, dusted, fresh flowers on the table. Then I realized I was staging it for strangers, making it pretty so someone else could buy my life. I sat on the porch and cried for exactly 5 minutes. Then I left. Margaret brought moving boxes from U-Haul a few days later. We stacked them in the garage. I didn't start packing yet, but seeing them there, cardboard proof that this was really happening, made it harder to breathe. Over the next few weeks, the pattern became clear. Brian tried everything. First, the guilt. Phone calls about how much the house meant to him, how many memories. This is where I grew up, Mom, where Dad lived. You can't just sell our history. Our history. Suddenly it was ours, not mine. Then the concern. Texts about senior living communities. I found this great place. You'd have people around, activities. It's only $3,500 a month. I could help with that. Help with it. With my money. From my house sale. When that didn't work, he tried reason. Showed up with Jennifer one evening. Both of them calm. Practiced. Mom, Brian said, sitting at my kitchen table. We have a proposal. Jennifer pulled out a folder. Official looking. Organized. We'd like to buy the house from you, she said. You can stay here as long as you want. We'll handle maintenance, taxes, everything. You'd have no worries. Brian nodded. Market value minus 20% for family discount. You keep living here. When you're ready to downsize, we already own it. Win-win. I looked at the paperwork. Clean. Professional. Reasonable on the surface. Let me think about it, I said. After they left, I photographed every page, sent them to Susan, my attorney. Her response came back in 10 minutes. Do not sign anything. Call me. We met the next day. She walked me through the proposal line by line. Market value minus 20%. That's $97,000 less than fair value. You'd be paying him rent, essentially, disguised as maintenance fees. And when you're ready to downsize, he decides when, not you. The moment you sign, he owns your house and you're his tenant. He could evict you with 30 days' notice. So it's not a compromise. It's theft with paperwork. I declined the offer that night. Brian's response was immediate and cold. Fine, but you're making a mistake. A big one. 2 days later, I got the voicemail. Mom, I talked to a lawyer. Did you know I can petition for conservatorship? If you're making irrational financial decisions, I can get the court to stop you. You're not competent to sell that house. Call me back. We need to talk about this. My hands were shaking when I played it for Susan. Empty threat, she said immediately. You're 72 and sharp as a tack, but let's shut this down now. She arranged a cognitive evaluation, Dr. Patterson, 2 hours of tests, memory, reasoning, judgment, drew clocks, repeated word lists, solved puzzles. When we finished, Dr. Patterson smiled. Mrs. Carson, you're sharper than most 40-year-olds I test. Your son has no grounds for conservatorship. None. Susan had him write it on official letterhead, added it to our file. He's desperate, Susan said. Desperate people make threats. But you have all the power here. Don't forget that. But power didn't make it easier. The stress caught up with me 5 weeks in, chest tightness during a showing. Margaret drove me to urgent care, just elevated blood pressure, 160/95. The doctor prescribed medication and rest. You need to reduce your stress level, she said, looking at me over her glasses. Whatever's going on, your body's telling you it's too much. I'm working on it, I said. Work faster. She was right. I needed this resolved. For my own survival. The house had 3 offers within 6 weeks. 6 weeks of showings and cleaning and leaving my own home so strangers could walk through it. 6 weeks of Brian's calls and threats and manipulation attempts. Karen presented the offers. One was all cash, asking price, no contingencies, close in 3 days if I wanted. Take it, I said. Are you sure? I'm sure. I signed the paperwork that afternoon. The house sold in 3 days. That's when things got really ugly. Brian showed up the night before closing. Pounded on the door. I didn't answer. "Mom, I know you're in there. You can't do this. This is our house. You're stealing from your own grandchildren." The grandchildren. Now he was using them. I called the police. They came, talked to him, made him leave. That night I couldn't sleep. I found the grandkids' drawings in the junk drawer, stick figures labeled Grandma's house, hearts and flowers. "I love you, Nana." I couldn't pack them, couldn't throw them away, just left them on the counter, uncertain like everything else in my life. Emily called that week. She'd heard from Brian. He'd tried to get her on his side. "He said you're having a breakdown," Emily told me, "that you're not yourself, that someone's manipulating you." "What did you say?" "I told him he forged your signature, had your house appraised without permission, and called you the extra mouth, and that if anyone's being manipulated, it's him, by his own greed." "How did he take that?" "Not well. We're not speaking right now." "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't want you to have to choose." "I'm not choosing, Mom. I'm standing by what's right. There's a difference." The day of closing, I wore my good blazer, the one I used to wear to parent-teacher conferences. Professional, composed. Susan met me at the title company. We sat across from the buyers, a young couple expecting their first child, excited, nervous. The way I'd been 34 years ago when Tom and I bought this house. I signed the papers, every page, every initial, every signature transferring ownership from me to them. $485,000, minus closing costs, minus realtor fees, $450,000 deposited into my account. The couple thanked me, said they'd take good care of the house, raise their family there, make it a home. "I know you will," I said, and I meant it. I had 30 days to move out. Margaret helped me pack, room by room, box by box, 34 years of life reduced to labeled cardboard, dishes, books, photos, handle with care. Every box felt like grief, but also relief. I'd spent 6 weeks fighting, 6 weeks of Brian's manipulation and threats and guilt trips, 6 weeks of him trying everything to stop me. But I'd done it. The house was sold. The money was mine. And Brian couldn't touch it. 3 days before I was supposed to leave, Brian tried one last time. He showed up with a letter, handwritten, left it on my doorstep. I opened it that night, sat at my kitchen table, empty now, most of the furniture already moved to storage. "Mom, I know I messed up. The gambling got out of control. I kept thinking the next bet would fix everything. I thought I could pay you back before you noticed. I'm sorry. I'm getting help now. Real help this time. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. I see what I did now." Gambling. That explained the debt, the desperation, Jennifer's pressure. I read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to call him immediately. Part of me wanted to tear it up. I did neither. I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday we'd talk. Maybe someday I'd believe he'd changed. But that day wasn't today. Today, I was protecting the peace I'd built, the peace I'd earned, the peace that took selling my house and setting boundaries to achieve. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. On moving day, I stood in the empty living room. No furniture, no photos, no memories on display, just walls and floors and echoes. I thought I'd feel sadder, more grief, more loss. But all I felt was tired and free. I locked the door for the last time, handed the keys to Karen, who'd hand them to the new owners, and I drove away. Didn't look back. Couldn't. If I looked back, I might change my mind, might doubt, might wonder if I'd made the right choice. But I knew I had, because the house was never the problem. The problem was what it represented, what Brian saw when he looked at it. Not a home, not a mother, not a life, just $450,000, and an obstacle in the way. Well, the obstacle was gone now, and so was the house. And I was still standing. 2 days after I moved out, Brian showed up at my new condo. I don't know how he got the address. Maybe Emily told him. Maybe he followed me. It didn't matter. He stood at my door, looked smaller somehow, tired, defeated. "Mom," he said, "please, Can we talk?" I almost didn't let him in, almost closed the door, but I opened it, let him inside. My new place was smaller, 2 bedrooms, most of my furniture still in storage, boxes stacked in corners. It didn't feel like home yet, just a place I was staying. Brian looked around, took it all in. "This is where you're living now?" "Yes. It's small. It's enough." He sat on the couch, rubbed his face with both hands. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Mom, I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But selling the house? That was our home. It was my home. Our family home. Where we grew up. Where Dad..." "Brian." My voice was firm, steady. "Why are you here?" He looked at me. Really looked at me. "I need you to understand. I was scared. We're drowning in debt. Jennifer's threatening to leave. I lost my job. I didn't know what else to do. The house, I thought if I could just..." "You thought if you could just wait for me to die, all your problems would be solved." He flinched. "That's not... I wasn't... You had my house appraised 3 months before Thanksgiving. You tried to forge my power of attorney. You contacted realtors. You calculated exactly how much profit you'd make if you put me in the cheapest senior living facility you could find. You called me the extra mouth." Silence. "I wasn't planning your death," he said finally. His voice was quiet, small. "I was just planning for when the time came. I thought I was being responsible. Responsible would have been asking me, talking to me, not scheming behind my back. I know that now. Do you? Because 3 days ago you tried to have me declared incompetent. You threatened conservatorship. You used my grandchildren to manipulate me. I was desperate. So you thought cruelty was the answer?" He didn't respond, just sat there, looking at his hands. "I would have helped you," I said. My voice was softer now, but firm. "If you'd asked, if you'd been honest, if you'd treated me like your mother instead of an obstacle, I would have helped. I know. But you didn't ask. You just took, and you waited, and you calculated." He started crying, not dramatically, just tears, quiet, broken. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Part of me wanted to comfort him, hug him, tell him it was okay, but it wasn't okay, and I couldn't keep pretending it was. "Tomorrow," I said. 2:00, my attorney's office. "We're going to settle this, officially, legally." "What does that mean?" "It means we're going to establish boundaries, terms, consequences, because I can't do this anymore, Brian. I can't keep having the same conversation. I can't keep forgiving without change. I'm changing. I swear I'm getting help. Then prove it. Tomorrow, 2:00. He left without another word. The next day, I wore my good blazer again, the one I'd worn to closing, professional, composed. Susan met me in the lobby of her office building, squeezed my shoulder. "You ready?" she asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." We rode the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down the hallway into the conference room. Brian was already there, sitting across the table. Emily next to him. She'd flown in that morning, said she wanted to be there. For me. Susan sat at the head of the table, opened her folder, pulled out documents, lots of them. "Thank you all for coming," Susan said. "We're here to discuss Diane's estate planning and to establish clear terms moving forward." Brian looked at the documents, then at me. "Mom, what is this?" "This," I said, "is what happens when you try to steal from your own mother." Susan slid a folder across the table. "Brian, your mother has invited you here as a courtesy, to explain her decisions, to set boundaries, and to give you an opportunity to respond." He opened the folder, started reading. I watched his expression change, confusion, anger, shock. This is about the house, about money. "It's about more than that," I said. I took a breath. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for, the moment to say everything I'd kept inside for months. "I raised you in that house," I said. My voice was steady, Calm. I'd practiced this. I sacrificed to give you opportunities. $35,000 for college, double shifts, summer jobs, years of my life. $25,000 for your first house down payment, my entire retirement savings at the time. $18,000 for your wedding, every detail you and Jennifer wanted. And twice I bailed you out financially. $8,000 the first time, $7,000 the second time, $93,000 total. Over 25 years. I thought I was helping you build a life. I thought I was being a good mother. But on Thanksgiving, you called me the extra mouth. Like I was a burden, an expense, a problem to be managed. And then I found out. You'd had my house appraised without telling me. You'd tried to add your name to my property deed using forged documents. You'd contacted realtors, discussing timelines for selling my house. You'd researched senior living facilities and calculated exactly how much profit you'd make after warehousing me, somewhere cheap for a few years. You didn't want to help me. You didn't want to take care of me. You wanted me gone, or at least out of the way, so you could cash in. I paused. Let it sink in. Brian's face was pale. Emily was crying quietly. I have all the evidence, I continued. The appraisal you requested, the emails with realtors, the text messages with Jennifer calculating profit margins, the forged power of attorney the county clerk rejected, the testimony from 3 professionals you contacted about my property. All of it. Documented, dated, witnessed. I slid the evidence folder across the table. He didn't open it. I sold the house, I said, for $485,000. After fees, $450,000. My money from my house that I owned outright, that you had no legal claim to. And now I'm going to tell you how I'm distributing my assets, not because I owe you an explanation, but because I want you to understand the consequences of treating your mother like an investment you're waiting to cash in on. Susan pulled out another document, the updated will, estate plan, everything. $200,000, I said, will go to purchasing my new condo and establishing an emergency fund for myself. I'm 72. I need security. $100,000 will go into a trust for your children's education. The money is for them. You cannot access it. You cannot borrow against it. When they turn 18, they'll have college funds, protected. $50,000 will go to your sister, Emily, as thanks for her support, her loyalty, her willingness to stand by what's right even when it meant standing against her brother. $50,000 will go to charity, elder abuse prevention organizations, so maybe other seniors won't have to go through what I went through. And $50,000 will go to you. Conditional. Brian looked up. Conditional, Susan read from the document. The $50,000 will be released to Diane Carson upon completion of the following requirements. 1. Enrollment in and completion of a financial counseling program. 2. 1 year of no contact with Diane Carson except in family emergencies. 3. Written proof of ongoing therapy addressing gambling addiction and family dynamics. Gambling? Brian's voice cracked. I read your letter, I said. I know about the gambling. I know that's where the debt came from. And I know you need help, so I'm requiring it. Get help. Prove you're changing, and you'll get $50,000, enough to help with your debt, not enough to solve all your problems, but enough. And if I don't, then the money goes to charity too. Silence, heavy, thick. Mom, I'm not done. Susan, the rest. Susan pulled out more documents. Medical and financial power of attorney have been updated. Emily Carson is now designated, not Brian. Emily will make medical decisions if Diane is unable. Emily will manage finances if necessary. Emily is executor of the estate. Brian turned to Emily. You're taking her side? Emily's voice was quiet, firm. I'm not taking a side, Brian. I'm doing what's right. You forged Mom's signature. You had her house appraised without permission. You called her the extra mouth at Thanksgiving. I was there. I heard it. I didn't say anything then, and I regret that, but I'm saying something now. She looked at me, then back at Brian. What you did was wrong. And Mom has every right to protect herself. I love you. You're my brother, but I love her too, and she deserves dignity. She deserves respect. And if you can't give her that, then yes, I'm standing with her. Brian's face crumbled. So that's it? I'm cut out of the family? You're not cut out, I said. You're being given boundaries. There's a difference. You'll get $50,000 if you complete the requirements. You'll have a relationship with me again if you prove you've changed. But I won't be disrespected in my own life anymore. I won't be treated like a burden. I won't be calculated as profit. 1 year, he said. No contact for a year? You need time to work on yourself, and I need time to heal. A year isn't forever, but it's necessary. And if something happens, family emergencies are excluded. If I'm hospitalized, if something catastrophic happens, Emily will contact you. But Sunday phone calls, holiday dinners, those are done until you've completed the requirements. He sat there, processing, broken. I didn't want it to be like this, he said finally. I swear I didn't. It got out of control. The debt, the pressure. I kept thinking I'd fix it before you found out. I'd get a job, pay everything back, make it right, but it kept getting worse. And the house, it was just there. This big asset. And I thought, you thought it was yours, I finished. You thought I was just borrowing it until you needed it. I didn't think of it like that, but maybe I did. I don't know anymore. Susan slid papers across the table. These are the terms. Diane's estate plan is finalized, signed, legal. You can contest if you want, but you'll lose. The evidence is overwhelming. The cognitive evaluation proves competence. You have no grounds. Brian stared at the papers, didn't touch them. Can I say something? He asked quietly. I nodded. I love you, Mom. I know I didn't show it. I know I treated you like a problem. But I do love you, and I hate that I made you feel like you had to do this. I hate that I destroyed our relationship over money, over stupidity, over, his voice broke, over being too proud to just ask for help. Tears on his face, real ones, not manipulation, just pain. And I felt it too, the loss, the grief, the love that was still there, underneath all the damage. I love you too, I said softly. I always will. You're my son. But love isn't enough, not without respect, not without change. He nodded, couldn't speak. Prove you're getting help, I said. Prove you're changing, and in a year we'll talk, really talk, about rebuilding, about trust, about what family looks like going forward. And if I can't, if I mess up, then the money goes to charity, and you lose more than $50,000. You lose me. The weight of that hung in the air. Susan gathered the documents. These copies are yours to keep. The originals are filed. The estate plan is executed. The terms are binding. Brian took the papers, folded them slowly, stood up. I'm sorry, Mom, he said one more time. For all of it. I know. He left. Emily stayed. After the door closed, I sat there, quiet still. Watching him leave, I'd waited to feel guilty, waited to feel cruel, waited for that mother's instinct to kick in, the one that says, protect your child at all costs, forgive everything, sacrifice yourself. But all I felt was relief, and something I hadn't felt in years, free. Free from walking on eggshells, free from being the extra mouth, free from waiting to be erased. He'd get $50,000. If he did the work, if he changed. But I wasn't giving him my dignity anymore. I wasn't giving him my peace. Those were mine to keep. Susan put her hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. It doesn't feel like the right thing. It never does. Not at first. But you set boundaries. You protected yourself. You required change, not just promises. That's not cruelty. That's self-preservation. Emily came around the table, hugged me. I'm proud of you, Mom, she whispered, And I held on to her, my daughter, my ally, my executor, the one who chose what was right even when it was hard. 3 months later, I got an email from Brian, a photo attachment, certificate of completion, financial counseling, gamblers' anonymous meetings, 12 weeks attended, therapist contact information, one sentence in the email, "I'm trying, Mom, I'm really trying." I didn't respond. Not yet, but I kept the email. In 9 more months, we'd talk. Maybe, if he kept trying, if I was ready. But for now, I had my condo, my emergency fund, my new life, and I had my peace. That was enough. 3 months later, life looked very different. I'd used the money from the house sale carefully, $200,000 for a 2-bedroom condo in a 55-plus community. Small but comfortable. A balcony with a view of the park, no mortgage, no debt. The remaining emergency fund sat in a high-yield savings account, $50,000 I'd never touch unless I had to. Financial security for the first time in my adult life. The grandchildren's trust was established. $100,000 protected by law. Brian couldn't access it, couldn't borrow against it. When they turned 18, they'd have college funds. No matter what happened between Brian and me, they'd be taken care of. Emily received her $50,000, called me crying when the check arrived. "Mom, I didn't do this for money." I told her I knew, but she'd earned it. Loyalty, support, standing up when it mattered. The money went toward her daughter's education fund and paying off her car. Practical, responsible, just like her. The charity received their $50,000 too. Elder abuse prevention programs. My attorney knew which organizations did real work. Maybe my money would help someone else spot the warning signs I'd missed for too long. Brian's $50,000 sat in escrow, conditional, waiting for him to complete the requirements. I didn't know if he would. Didn't know if I wanted him to, honestly. Part of me hoped he'd do the work, get help, change. Part of me was too tired to hope anymore. We hadn't spoken since the meeting at Susan's office. 3 months of silence, the longest we'd gone without talking since he was born. Emily kept me updated. He'd enrolled in financial counseling, started therapy, attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings. She'd seen the paperwork, said he seemed different, quieter, maybe genuine this time. I didn't know. Time would tell. The legal changes were final. Emily was executor of my estate, had my power of attorney, medical and financial. If something happened to me, she'd make the decisions, not Brian. That was done. Margaret still checked on me every morning. Coffee on my balcony now instead of her back porch. Same ritual, different location. She'd started setting boundaries with her own daughter after watching me do it. Said it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. And the most necessary. "You inspired me," she told me one morning, "watching you choose yourself." I realized I'd been choosing everyone else my whole life, too. We'd become closer through this. Real friends. Not just neighbors. Emily visited monthly. 3-hour drive, but she made it work. We'd have lunch, talk, laugh. She brought her daughter sometimes. My granddaughter, 5 years old, sweet, innocent. Didn't understand why Uncle Brian wasn't around anymore, but she adjusted. Emily and I never talked about Brian when her daughter was there. That was adult business, private. The letter arrived 4 months after the attorney meeting. Handwritten. Brian's. Handwriting. I recognized it immediately. I sat at my kitchen table. New table, small, just right for one person, and I opened it. "Mom, I've been in counseling like you asked. I'm starting to understand what I did wrong." The extra mouth comment. I replay it every day. I was scared about money and I took it out on you. That was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. I'm working on myself. I see it now. You weren't the problem. I was. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. Part of me wanted to call him immediately. Part of me wanted to tear it up. I did neither. I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday we'd talk. Maybe someday I'd believe he'd changed. But that day wasn't today. Today, I was protecting the peace I'd built, the peace I'd earned. the peace that took selling my house and setting boundaries to achieve, and that was enough. For now, that was enough. I'd updated my will, my estate plan, everything legally documented, the house money allocated, trusts established, powers of attorney assigned, my assets were protected, my wishes were clear. No one could forge my signature or manipulate my property again. I'd done what I needed to do, set boundaries, required change, protected myself. Susan, my attorney, had called last week, asked how I was doing. I told her I was adjusting, learning to live smaller, quieter. "You did something remarkable," she'd said. "Most people can't set boundaries with their children. They feel too guilty. But you did it, and you're still standing." Some days barely, I admitted, but standing, that's what matters. My new condo had a small balcony. I'd planted tomatoes in pots, 3 plants, nothing like the garden I'd had before, but they were mine. I watered them every morning, watched them grow. It felt like starting over, in a good way. 6 months after selling the house, someone asked me if I regretted it. I thought about it, really thought about it, and I realized I didn't. I missed the memories, the good ones. Christmas mornings, birthday parties, the sound of kids playing in the yard. But I didn't miss walking on eggshells. I didn't miss feeling like a burden. I didn't miss wondering when my son would calculate my death as convenient. The house was just a building. This condo, this life, this peace, this was mine. All mine. And that was worth more than any 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage could ever be. 9 months after Thanksgiving. 9 months since I heard those words. 9 months since I sold my house and rebuilt my life from scratch. I'm 73 now. I live in a 2-bedroom condo with a balcony. Every morning I make coffee and sit outside, watching the sunrise. I planted tomato plants in pots. They're thriving, small, productive, mine, just like me. Brian completed his financial counseling 3 months ago, finished his therapy requirements last month. Emily says he's different, quieter, more honest about his struggles. The $50,000 will release to him in 3 more months if he maintains the requirements. I don't know if we'll reconcile after that, but I'm open to the possibility. On my terms. I see the grandchildren once a month. Emily coordinates. They come to my condo, we bake cookies, I read to them. They ask about their dad sometimes. I tell them grown-ups need space to work things out. But Grandma loves them. That never changes. Margaret still brings coffee most mornings. My book club meets on Tuesdays. We just finished a mystery novel, starting a memoir next week. I volunteer at the senior center twice a month, speaking to other seniors about financial protection, helping others spot the warning signs I missed. Some days I miss the house, the big kitchen, the garden, the memories in every room, but I don't miss the anxiety, the eggshells, the calculation in my son's eyes when he looked at me. This condo is smaller, simpler, but it's mine. No one is waiting for me to die so they can inherit it. No one sees me as an obstacle or an expense or an extra mouth. I'm just me. 73 years old, living alone, living well, standing on my own. 9 months ago, I sat at a Thanksgiving table and heard my son call me the extra mouth. Today, I'm sitting on my balcony watching the sunrise, drinking coffee I made in my own kitchen in my own home that no one can take from me. Same woman, different life, better life. And I did that. Me. I chose myself. Finally. After 72 years of choosing everyone else. People ask if I have regrets, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I think I was too harsh. Here's what I know. I spent 30 years enabling my son's entitlement because I was afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of losing his love, afraid of being the difficult mother. But that fear kept me small, kept me accommodating, kept me silent while he planned my future without asking. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. Requiring change isn't punishment, it's accountability. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. I'm not telling you to cut off your kids. I'm not saying family doesn't matter. I'm saying you matter too. If you're in a situation where someone, family or not, makes you feel like a burden, I want you to know something. You're not. You're not the extra mouth. You're not in the way. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity. And you deserve to live your life on your terms. I sold my house, set boundaries, required change, and I'm still standing. Some days are hard. I won't lie about that. Some days I wonder if I made the right choice. Some days I miss my son so much it physically hurts. But then I sit on my balcony, watch my tomato plants grow, drink my coffee in peace, and I remember. This is what freedom feels like. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have sold the house or tried to work it out? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family, and how did it turn out? Let me know in the comments. And if you know someone going through something similar, especially an older parent dealing with entitled adult children, share this story. Sometimes people just need to know they're not alone. I'm 73 years old. I live in a 2-bedroom condo with a balcony garden. I have book club on Tuesdays and coffee with Margaret every morning. My son might call someday. He might not. But either way, I'm okay. I'm standing. I'm free. And I'm not the extra mouth anymore. I'm just me. And that's enough.